Well, what do we have here? Hello, everyone. Sorry for the, I guess, delay. Not even a delay because I didn't even know I was going to make this video 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago. Good God. Okay. Um, well, as you can see from the title and from what we have in front of us right here, we're doing another deck profile, and this time it will be for Premium Neo Nectar in Cardfight Vanguard, which is my favorite card game of all time, really. So, how about we just jump right into this? Now, this is using support from Clan Selection Plus Volume 1, which is freshly released towards the beginning of this month. And in Clan Selection Volume 1, Clan Selection Plus Volume 1, we got the new boss unit for Neo Nectar, Maiden of Stand Peony. Now, I absolutely love this card. What it does is it essentially allows for 5 attacks in Neo Nectar, which was something that we couldn't really do before after Katrina got banned. But now we have Katrina again. Unfortunately, we don't really use the skill that allows us to perform 5 attacks in Premium, primarily because, as we'll get to the G Zone later, we will want to be striding, and we will not be able to take advantage of her second skill. But her first skill is something that is very, very helpful. It is an on-place skill. Call up to 1 plant token to rearguard circle. That's if it's placed on a rearguard circle. But if it's placed on your vanguard circle, you get not plus two, you get 2 plant tokens instead of 1, which is very helpful because it pays for one of our costs, as we will see later on in the deck. Yeah, so this is your main ride target for your grade 3 turn. And if you if you go first, if we go first, then that's when we'll be able to get the 5 attacks. So that's some aggression that we can get if our opponent goes second and we get to go first instead. And for my backup grade 3, I am running 2 copies of Ranunculus Flower Maiden Asha, which is from the Asha trial deck for the V series. So yeah, this is the V series Asha. What this is one is our backup grade 3. It gives us a backup strategy in the Asha's Flower Fairy tokens, but that's not something you want to be consistently going into each game, which is why I only run 2 of them and as the backup grade 3. And a primary focus for this card actually is to actually be called on rearguard circle, so that way we can counterblast 1 and get what is essentially a 23k beater as well as 2 plant tokens, which will also pay for one of our costs, as we will see later on in the deck. So yeah, 2 copies of Ranunculus Flower Maiden Asha as our backup grade 3. Now, on to grade 2s, we have 4 copies of Maiden of Nephistus. Now, Maiden of Nephistus, its first skill is act on Vanguard Circle or Rearguard Circle once per turn, retire a plant token, which we will have an abundance of, and draw a card, which lets us dig into our deck. And until the end of the turn, it gets the boost ability as well as plus 15k power. So not only is it a 15k beater if you put it on your front row rearguard circles, it is also a 15k booster if you decide to put it in back row. And its second skill, auto on rearguard circle. When it boosts a grade 3 rearguard, you may have the boosted unit gain plus 1 crit until the end of that battle. And if you do that, yeah, you put it into soul, which is, it's fine. We don't really use a lot of soul in the deck, but what we don't use the soul for, we actually use while we don't soul blast, we do use the soul for one of our effects that we will see in our G zone later on. So next up is 4 copies of Maiden of Fallvine, which is another card from Clan Selection Plus Volume 1. Now, it only has one skill. It is Act on Rearguard Circle. Not Act, my apologies. Auto on Rearguard Circle. When placed from hand on a Rearguard Circle that has a plant token on it, so if you overcall this on top of a plant token, you get to draw a card, and this unit gets plus 5k until the end of turn. So once again, another 15k beater, and lets us dig into our deck for more of our pieces. It kind of sucks that it's from hand and not just on place, but it's still very nice to have that 15k beater on your turn for attacks and for that +1. And as we notice, it's not once per turn, and it's not one unit of this card name. So essentially, if you have 2 of them in your hand, that's just a draw 2, essentially, and you get 30k attack power on board, and that's why I run 4 of these. I like having that extra power and that extra draw, because as we will see later on, we are not running our grade 3 searcher, because I don't feel like it's necessary with the amount that we draw in our deck and with the amount that we're able to dig through it. With those 4 grade 2s that we just showed. The next grade 2 that I'm running is Autumn Turing Maiden Rosie. So, and I'm running 4 of those. This is once again another card from Clan Selection Plus Volume 1. And I don't see a lot of people running this, but I happen to really like this card, because once again, it allows us to dig, and it allows us to give power, not to itself, but to another unit. And that skill is Auto on Rearguard Circle. After the battle it attacked, counterblast 1, retire a grade 0 rearguard. So that is not only our plant tokens, that will be another unit that we will see very soon when we get to our grade 0s. Retire a grade 0 rearguard, and one of your units gets plus 5k until the end of turn. So once again, we have a plus 5k, we have a draw 1. So that is 12 cards. Practically everything in our grade 2 lineup lets us dig into our deck, which is quite nice and allows us to more consistently get into more copies of our Maiden of Stand Peony. And to finish off our grade 2 lineup, I'm running 3 copies of Ciela, primarily for just that counterblast 1 call to plant tokens. That's really the only reason I'm running this. It's a 10k. It's a 10k. Sometimes you want to ride into this. I'd say its primary function is actually to just ride into it. It's a secondary ride target. Primary ride target for grade 2s, I would recommend being the Nephistus, actually, even though it has that boost ability. I do recommend riding into Nephistus, because on your grade 2 turn, it can be that 15k base swinging into Vanguard, swinging into opponent's Vanguard. This is not a bad option as a ride target either. If you do want to replace any cards in this deck, I would say replacing Ciela is probably the best option to replace with other cards, but I like having Ciela in it just for that +2, and I think we already have enough draw power as is. So just having that plant token generation, I think, is worth it. Next up, we're going to our grade 1s. So first off, of course, we have Maiden of Sweetberry. In our grade 1 lineup, we're running 4 of those. And what Maiden of Sweetberry says is, when placed, call up to 1 plant token to Rearguard Circle, and from your Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, Soul Charge 1, which allows us to get more cards into Soul for one of our effects that we will see in our G zone later on. Also, if your Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, this card gets plus 5k on Rearguard Circle as a continuous skill. So it's a 13k beater on your grade 3 turn, and it allows us to get that kind of early game aggro, getting a plant token out on field for that as a booster, swinging in for 13k if you go second on your grade 1 turn, or just making a 13k column on itself, which is quite nice. You're hitting that grade 3 magic number if you're going up against a force matchup and all that. and all that really nice stuff. Also, in Overdress, base all grade 3s are, as far as we can tell so far, are 13k. So Maiden of Sweetberry in and of itself is a 13k column, and that can just that can hit the opponent's vanguards quite nicely. On that same train of thought, another card that we got in Clan Selection Plus Volume 1 for Neo Nectar is Maiden of Flower Carpet. Now, this is very similar to Maiden of Sweetberry, except you don't get the soul charge. But, once again, it is a 13k column all by itself. And the really nice thing about this card is its second skill, Auto and Drop Zone. At the end of your turn, retire 2 plant tokens, and then add this card from your hand to the drop zone. However, you can only activate one of these cards per turn. So if you have 2 of them in your drop zone, you can only add 1 of them back, which is fine in my opinion. It creates a plant token when called anyhow. It's a 10k shield that you can just grab back into your hand if you guarded with it during your opponent's turn, and then it's essentially a recyclable shield and recyclable plant token generation, which is quite handy to have. And that 13k column, you're hitting that base K Vanguard. Finishing off our grade 1 lineup, I am running 4 copies of Fruits Basket Elf, just for that plant token generation, because its one and only skill is Act on Rearguard Circle, Soul Blast 1 and retire this unit, and then you can get 2 plant tokens to Rearguard Circle. And if your Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, call those plant tokens get plus 5k. So what you're essentially getting is a 20k column on grade 3 turn, and a 10k column on any other on your grade 1 and grade 2 turns, which is quite nice. You really don't want to be writing into this card. The cards that you would want to write into obviously are your Maiden of Flower Carpet and your Maiden of Sweetberry. I recommend primarily the Maiden of Sweetberry because you don't want the flower carpets in Soul. You want them in drop zone primarily and in your hand, so that way you can take full advantage of Flower Carpet's recycling skill, in my opinion. And now onto our trigger lineup. We are running 4 V-Series heal triggers. My heal trigger of choice is Fairy Light Dragon. We are also running 4 of our skill critical triggers from, I believe the skill critical triggers were from Premium Collection 2020. I keep getting 2020 and 2019 mixed up with the crit triggers sometimes, but actually, yes, yeah, this was Premium Collection 2020 where these heal triggers are from. So we're running 4 of those, and we are running 4 of our Stride Fodder grade crit triggers from Premium Collection 2019. These count as grade 3 when paying the cost for Stride, which is quite nice because, as you saw, we only run 6 grade 3s, 4 of which being Maiden of Peony, and we want to continuously ride Maiden of Sweetberry to get those extra force markers so we can scale our rear guards a lot better. This also just gives power to our Vanguard at GB1. So on our first Stride turn, if we have this on field, our Vanguard just gets plus 10k by putting it into Soul. And once again, we will see with a later card's effect how we want this card in Soul. We want a good number of cards in Soul. And then 4 draw PGs, just for, once again, that little tad bit of extra draw power as a draw trigger, just so we can dig a bit deeper into our deck. And I prefer having the perfect guards as opposed to the 30k sentinels. You can switch these out for the 30k sentinels if you want to run 12 crit instead of 8 crit. I just prefer running the 8 crit, as I believe that we don't need that much crit, because as we can see, our G zone is already giving us some extra critical. And then for our starter, V-Series starter, of course, because you get that +1 draw, you get that quick shield, you get a lot of value from these starters. And I do enjoy the overdress starters that we've seen so far, but in premium, I do prefer running the V-Series starters just for that guaranteed extra draw when you ride on top of these cards. And now off to our G zone. Of course, the star of the G zone is of course Sandrine. Um, this is by far probably one of the best strides for Neonectar, in my opinion. Just for the fact that you can superior stride with this card, so you can generation break, accelerate. You can accelerate your generation breaks. You can do that, and if you superior stride this card, you do get a plus 10k and 1 crit. So on your base grade, on your first stride turn, your Vanguard is base 23k with 2 or 3 crit, depending on if you do Force 1 or Force 2. I do recommend doing Force 1 to scale your rear guards, but that is once again up to you and up to the matchup that you're going on. But yeah, so in order to superior stride this card, you counter +1 and retire 2 token units. And as you've hopefully noticed by this point, most of our token generation is already 2 token units. So that in of itself is, for example, Stand Peony is just a free 2 plant tokens just by riding her on Vanguard. So she's already paying for most of this cost for Sandrian already, which is quite nice and quite handy to have. Plus, we're not using our plant tokens for the Asha Flower Fairy token play in this deck anymore. So we don't run the risk of running out of plant tokens like we did with Dream Spinning Ranunculus Asha. I am running 2 copies of Lieta for the Persona Flip ability. So what Lieta says is, so when you stride her, you can do this once per turn. Counterblast 1, choose a face down card, from your G zone that is the same name as this card and flip it face up, so that's the Persona Flip. And when you do that, choose up to 1 card in your hand and put it into the soul. And then this unit gets the name of every card in your soul. And then search your deck for up to the number of cards in your G zone +1. So at minimum, you can choose up to 1 card from your deck. Well, minimum of 2 because you're already Persona flipping. And then call it to separate rearguard circles and then shuffle your deck. If the number of face-up cards in your G zone is 2 or more, choose 3 units and they get plus 3k until the end of turn. So this is another way to enable multi-attack in this deck. Well, not multi-attack. This is another way to fill up your board and get bigger numbers for your deck, I should say. I apologize for that. And once again, it's generation break acceleration because you stride into Lieta, Persona Flip into your G zone. You already had GB2, so all your GB1 skills are online, which you only have 1 GB1 skill. And then Superior Stride into Sandrine. And now we're at GB3. So on your first stride turn, you're at GB3 already, which is a very, very, very good way of doing things, especially since our next G Zone unit is Lindros Premier. Flower Princess of Candor, Lindros Premier. Now this card is a Generation Break 8 card, so we need to have 8 face-up G units, including this one. So this would essentially be if this can be your 8th one. So let's say you have 7 cards face-up in your G zone. You then stride Lindros Premier. Her Generation Break 8 skill is now online. And what her Generation Break 8 skill is, choose 3 normal units from your drop zone, return them to the deck. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, you may pay that cost that we just said. And if you do, choose one of your units, Search your deck for up to 3 cards with that same card name as that chosen unit and call them to separate rearguard circles. And the called units with this effect get plus 10k. Wait, I'm sorry. And the units called with this effect and this unit get plus 10k for each called unit until the end of turn. So if the game goes on long enough where you get Generation Break 8, essentially, Lindros Premier can get upwards of 30 plus 30k power. And then those other called units also get up to upwards of 30k power. So you are dealing with very large power numbers by that point in the game. If the game gets onto that point, your opponent probably doesn't have a lot of shield value in hand. You stride into this, and then you just swing for big numbers at face. And then you are probably going to be able to get them from there. We are also running one of the progenitor dragons. This is just a safety net if you think you're going to die that turn. Lets you survive that one extra turn. You can stride for free afterwards. You don't normally go into this. Once again, it's just a safety net. I don't run the Zeroth dragon because I'm broke and don't have enough money for the Zeroth dragon. If I did, I would also run the Zeroth dragon. Probably get rid of one copy of Sandrine for the Zeroth dragon. But for right now, I don't run it. Some more other cards in our G zone. We run one Cyclone just because of all of the plant tokens that we get. Those are all vanilla units. They're all affected by Cyclone's skill. Once again, we don't normally go into this card, but if you feel secure enough that you want to have what is essentially just a vanilla, if you don't want to go into your Lieta, you can stride into Cyclone and then Superior Stride into Sandrine, and then your plant tokens will get that plus 10k boost from Cyclone, and then you get those very, very, very big swings with your plant tokens. We also run Sea Breeze for the grade 2 game. If your opponent does not want to give you first stride, we do run the Sea Breeze for the grade 2 game. Once again, I don't see this card all too often. I only see it I've seen it like once or twice in some games. But yeah, it's in there. Once again, another safety net. You want to have the tools rather than not have the tools. And then for our G guards, I run 2 Enteros because we are always going to have pretty much 5 rear guards at the end of our turn. We run 1 Kostrina, 1 Verna, and then 1 Rain Breath Dragon. So for people that don't know what these cards do, let's go ahead and go over them. So Antero is our main G guard. So if you don't know what G guards are, it is essentially a very big shield, shields with effects in your G zone. They count towards your generation break as well as their G units. And instead of paying the cost of a grade 3 or a card that equals a grade 3, you pay a heal trigger from your hand as the cost to G-Guard with these. So, Antaro's G-Guard skill is Auto. Soul Blast 1, when this unit is placed on Guardian Circle, you may pay that cost of Soul Blast 1. If you do, until the end of that battle, this unit gets plus 5k. Then, if the number of your rear guards is 1 or less, or 4 or more, which we pretty much always have with our plant token generation, this unit gets an extra plus 15k shield. So this card is a 35k shield, which is very handy to have, which is why I run 2 of them. You're mainly going to be using these 2 as your G guards in most games. Kostrina, its skill is Generation Break 1 when placed on Guardian Circle. So if you G guard with this, it's already activating activating the GB1 for its own skill because it's a face-up G unit. Counterblast 1. Choose a face-down G-Guard from your G-Zone, turn it face-up. It's once again another Generation Break acceleration. And this unit gets plus 5k. Choose 1 card from your hand, call it to your guard circle. And if you have 2 or more cards with that same name as the called unit, this unit gets plus 10k shield. So this is a 30k shield if you have two of the same units out on the field. Another big shield, that's kind of the point of G-Guards. They are relatively big shields and used for those very, very aggressive pushes from your opponent. Next up is Verna's skill. Once again, opponent's guard step, choose a card with heal, that's just a cost. So its skill is, when placed on Guardian Circle, choose one of your rear guards, and this unit gets plus 5k for each of the other units with that same name as that unit until the end of that battle. So this can scale. This is essentially a scaling shield. So if you go into this, you want to make sure that you have multiple units with the same name. Most of the time, they're going to be plant tokens. And then, yeah, that just makes this an incredibly large shield. You don't go into this, at least I don't go into this a lot, because normally an onto row is going to be enough to block most Vanguard swings. But sometimes the Vanguard swing just gets really, really big, and you need to have that very big shield with Verna. And then our last G-Guard is Rain Breath Dragon. So this guy's skill is, when placed on Guardian Circle, choose up to one card from your hand, call it to rear guard circle, and that unit gets resist. What essentially resist is, it cannot be affected by opponent's skills, opponent's card skills. If you call the card, this unit gets plus 5k shield until the end of battle, 20k shield, and you're essentially probably not essentially, you are setting up for probably one of the other G-Guard skills that target having multiple units with the same card name on the board. And of course, for out-of-deck things, 1 Ostrich Flower Fairy token, 5 regular plant tokens. Sometimes, well, I have more than 1 Ostrich Flower Fairy token, but you only really need one of them just for tokens. And then 5 regular plant tokens. And then we also have our force markers and quick shield. These are the double-sided force markers. Yeah, you can use whatever force markers you want. Once again, these are out-of-deck things, just cosmetic things. I'm a broke college student, so I can't afford the fancy ones that are being sold. But yeah, that is my premium Neonectar build for Clan Selection Plus Volume 1. I do hope you all enjoyed it, and I do hope y'all will consider taking this deck out and piloting it. Bushiroad Spring Fest is indeed coming up. I don't know if I'm going to participate because we're all stuck inside most of the time, and I don't like going out anyhow on a regular basis. But who knows? Maybe I'll go to Bushiroad Spring Fest. Maybe I'll make some videos on it. Who knows? Some other things to note, I will be making more content for the channel. I will be making overdress content once we actually get into overdress season. I will be making more deck profiles. I promise this time I won't leave y'all hanging for 2 years for another deck profile. I'm not going to have a consistent schedule. I'm just going to upload when I upload. It's not going to take 2 years though, so don't worry about that. And I don't think there's anything else I need to talk about, so I do hope all of you all have a very nice day as I hit my camera on accident. And thank you for watching. Please go ahead and subscribe. I promise I will make more content. So do consider doing that. And I'll see you all in the next video. See ya.